Now, sticking with retail, it's difficult to lump the entire group into one. It is so slivered. We are seeing an extremely complex time for the consumer, higher prices, changing trends, new ways to spend, each subsector of retail being impacted differently. So this week we're going to break out each piece of that economic ecosystem to figure out what's working and what isn't. Today, let's look at the big box names like Target, Walmart, and any others you want to lump into that category. Bob Drbul is Senior Managing Director of Retail and analyst at Guggenheim Securities. Bob, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Which of these big box dudes do you like the best in terms of a stock investment, not in terms necessarily of their business prospects right now?
Well, I mean, we have buy ratings on both Walmart and Target, and Walmart is they've had a tremendous run over the last few years, and they continue to execute at a high level. I think from the stock perspective, we'll probably favor Target a little bit more right now, just
because it hasn't had the run.
Exactly, it hasn't had the run. I think there's a lot more skepticism around, the outlook for Target. There aren't as many sort of great things to say about Target, but from our perspective, I feel like it's a really well managed business. They've seen a lot of ups and downs over the last few decades, and they'll manage through this one as well.
It's funny we're talking about this because I mentioned this morning I was at a Target Saturday morning. I just had to pick up a few things, and it was quiet. I thought it was still going to be busy, and I said to the cashier as I left, "Oh, well, yesterday must have been busy, right?" And she said, "No." She said it was the quietest Black Friday she'd ever worked there, and that for periods of time it was quote unquote boring. I mean, that's not to say they couldn't be doing quite well online, or maybe it was just my store, who knows. What do you think is going on there?
Well, I think a couple of things. I think it's a really long season. I think all the data that's out is very encouraging. We're off to a great start. I think you have to participate in the early, promotions and a lot of the action that's going on. But, from our perspective, you've got a lot of days left. You have a lot of weekends left.
It's like the longest period between Thanksgiving and Christmas, right, that we could have?
Yes, and I think one of the things that Target has seen, might be the answer to that question is that Target has seen, more sort of buying closer to the need, right? So, the weekend would be good, but then, maybe it's the third Saturday before Christmas, when you go a little bit further and closer to the period. There's no question the traffic trends have been challenged at Target, but from our perspective, I think you got to balance, where the business prospects are and where the stock is. And
has Black Friday lost its juice?
Well, I think what's happening is there's a much better balance of, earlier. Start earlier in November. Yeah. You might have a few weeks of the promotions that go on, and then you got sort of online versus stores. So Black Friday specials, were available earlier in the week. I think it's. Omni-channel is the way
and as
the
long
future.
as you have the online option, there isn't that same sense of urgency, it would seem to me, to get in my car, fight the traffic, and go to a store on that Friday.
Correct. I mean, I totally agree with that. And and I think sometimes if you just have to have it that day, maybe that's the way to do it. Or if you're not a big online shopper, you like going into the stores. There are people that still love shopping in stores.
Yeah, no, I like going to stores. I really do.
And the same cashier told me in the mid to late afternoon, traffic started to pick up because people then just wanted to get out of the house and have that experience, but it wasn't driven by, hey, I need to get this doorbuster. I just want to ask you about some of the other things. Do we talk deflation? I mean, one of the things as we look through the Black Friday number, it's up 1.1% in store, 2.5% overall. Both of those are negative in real terms. Is that because of heavy discounting, or what do you think is going on there?
Well, I do think deflation, let's separate it for a second. I think on the food and consumable side, there's still inflation, but there's disinflation. You're seeing increases in price, but at a lower rate. The concern is deflation is right around the corner, that we're going to see lower prices, maybe this quarter into 24. So that piece of it is something where there's been a lot of pressure on the consumer. The other side of it is that the deflation in the hard goods and sporting goods, or when you think about the other categories like that, the deflation that's present there, that's also moderating a bit, but that's present and that's been the case. So I think the outlook would be something of, deflation is probably a good thing for the consumer, and the more deflation that we see in the near term will put more money back into the pockets of the consumer so they could have a better season and buy a little bit more.
How about those beauty and cosmetics names that we hear about? They seem to be sort of the unstoppable force here.
It's interesting. The CFO from Macy's, Adrian Mitchell, talked about beauty is the new food, right? Like that was the quote, and I love.
You can go without food, but you can't go without mascara, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And so
that's what I say every morning.
That was his line to us when we were talking through, the quarterly results and the trends, and we've really seen that in a lot of retail. That you've seen it at Kohl's, you've seen it at Target, throw in Macy's. Some of these guys really have had solid beauty trends, and and I think that's a category where when people are making decisions on what they're going to buy, and the female shopper might sort of spend a little bit more on the beauty side of it.